In the sprawling agora of digital dramaturgy, a veritable epic of postmodern pathology unfurls as Hassan Piker, colloquially exalted as Hasanabi, unsheathes the scalding blade of rhetorical excoriation upon the labyrinthine machinations of destiny's sinister orbit.
Epstein has his own Ghislaine Maxwell as well, the orbiter NotSoErudite, who's running cover at the maximum power level the last few days. She's the one trying to talk victims into not taking legal actions in the posts I've seen. NotSoErudite, the Ghislaine Maxwell of Epstein. DMs revealed that Epstein had to pay off one of his victims through his co-host, NotSoErudite. Not yet, Coleman canceled, so other than that, I mentioned, is anything you were hoping to be brought up? I think I'm going to decide my next course of action of what to do with myself and him based on how that conversation goes, unless you decide you don't want to talk to him. That's okay too. Basically, I have my plans, course of action paused, and we'll choose something depending on if he agrees he has to make up, repent. Oh, the person in the blue is Pixie. He has to make up, repent for the action and wants to work with me to find a way to do that, or if he doesn't feel that way, I don't want to talk to him myself because I feel like I tried explaining what I was feeling and he didn't really understand. I also have a little anxious voice in my brain telling me to prepare for the worst because he probably doesn't care enough to willingly try to make up for his mistakes. And that means I'll have to start taking a more extreme nuclear options to deal with. But I'm trying to avoid spiraling down that line of thought because I'm trying to hold out for hope. And just not to scare you, I'm 100% not going to do anything to myself, no matter what he says during holiday season, because I don't want to traumatize my friends during a time that's supposed to be happy. And even if he responds negatively, it doesn't mean I'll auto myself. I'm trying to contemplate all different courses. Jesus Christ. Oh, that's the other thing where the fan base, including his Ghislaine, will regularly also say that like everyone is mentally ill and that like they want to harm themselves or whatever. And then sometimes they'll actually egg people on too. It's like real Kiwi farm. Ghislaine had a financial incentive to sweep for him because they have a pod together. That makes sense. Yeah, NotSoErudite is another massive hater of mine, by the way, just so you know. I mean, virtually every single person at some point, when you're a Destiny Orbiter, you gotta do that. When you're a Destiny Orbiter, you gotta pay the piper. You gotta say Hassan sucks, you know? She's a fake psychological expert. Wait, what? What's Kiwi Farm? I'm old. Kiwi Farms is an old 4chan style forum where a lot of rabid right-wing anti-trans freaks will get together and like mass harass and try to ruin the lives of people and try to also get them to commit. And they have like they have a leaderboard, I think, or they have a bunch of people that they have actually successfully caused through mass harassment, stalking, doxing, swatting, getting them fired from their jobs. It's like a hate cult. They have a count. Yeah. Destiny tried to buy the website actually when another former orbiter of Destiny who wanted to me, or I mean not a former orbiter that wanted to, sorry, another former orbiter of Destiny that was being targeted by them, wanted to shut it down, and what do you call it? Destiny, I think, in the process was talking about potentially buying it or something. It's like really the awful. Anyway, did he say anything about the Elon salute or the ADL response? Yes, I've covered the Elon salute and the ADL response. Are you crazy? Can I share this with Steven? He communicated to me he knows there's no excuse at all and doesn't know what he can do to make it up. I am trying to bridge between to help him understand what would make you feel that he understood he was wrong and should never do this again. Or better, what can I share with him? You can share this and anything you want with him. I felt like when we talked, you really understood where I was coming from and can hopefully explain this better than I can. Gotcha. Thanks for not sugarcoating anything about where you're at. I think what we talked about is what you needed: help removing the video from online, getting the guy who hacked charged, a sense that Steven understands how in the wrong he was, and a plan to prevent this from ever happening again. Is this what you feel you need? Yeah, the only problem is number 3, because even with the removal of the video and getting the guy hacked charged, Steven has to face consequences proportional to his actions. I want this to be the most expensive mistake of his life, and I'm essentially asking him to self-punish himself in a way I don't think he will like or agree to without the law involved. I don't have a dollar amount from the top of my head. It just has to be enough for that. For the rest of his life, he thinks the word nude, he associates it with the amount of money he lost. Obviously, I don't want to make him destitute, but it should be large enough that he does feel upset about it and is not easily recoverable. Okay, so that is what you want to pursue. It wasn't clear to me before that this was what you wanted specifically. My understanding was it was more of a sense of rehabilitation and justice. Oh my God.
Within this grand gignol of parasocial fervor and epistemological corruption, one figure stands conspicuously amidst the miasma of allegations. NotSoErudite, whom Hasanabi has dubbed the Ghislaine Maxwell of this insidious pantheon of digital malfeasance. Let us traverse, dear reader, into the veritable inferno of psychological manipulation, power dynamics, and ethical decrepitude that characterize this sordid tale. Here lies a world where interlocutors become interlopers, where discourse masquerades as dominance, and where the fragile boundaries of accountability crumble under the weight of performative magnanimity. Destiny's Empire, a pseudo-intellectual thunderdome of dialectical exhibitionism, thrives upon the blood, sweat, and tears of those ensnared within its web. A web spun by his most zealous acolytes, chief among them the ignominious NotSoErudite. What, pray, is the essence of this Ghislaine Maxwell parallel? Hasanabi's allegory, though hyperbolic to the untrained ear, is not without merit. NotSoErudite, positioned as a psychological consigliere, appears as both the shield and the sword of this parasocial fiefdom. In the proverbial court of public opinion, she is the gatekeeper, the fixer, the emissary of destiny's will, a shadowy orchestrator whose raison d'etre is to mollify dissent, dissuade action, and obfuscate accountability. She embodies the archetypal enabler, a sycophantic marionette who, through a combination of gaslighting and pseudo-therapeutic sophistry, disarms those who might otherwise upend the precarious balance of this digital kingdom. To elucidate further, we must dissect the colliginous entrails of her role. Consider her engagement with Pixie, the hapless victim whose plight embodies the Sisyphean struggle against destiny's authoritarian stranglehold. When Pixie sought justice, retribution, and a semblance of closure, NotSoErudite emerged as the perfidious interlocutor, a Gorgonian figure cloaked in the garb of empathy, yet wielding the venomous fangs of manipulation. Her alleged attempt to dissuade legal action, cloaked in the language of reconciliation, reeks of Machiavellian duplicity, an endeavor to protect not the aggrieved but the architect of her suffering. This, dear reader, is not mere hyperbole, but a damning indictment of the parasocial hierarchies that underpin Destiny's Empire. Like Epstein's Ghislaine Maxwell, NotSoErudite functions as the indispensable accomplice, the linchpin in a system predicated upon exploitation and control. Her role, far from incidental, is central to the perpetuation of a culture wherein victims are silenced, dissenters are ostracized, and the architect of this toxic ecosystem remains insulated from accountability. What, then, of Destiny himself? He is the unrepentant minotaur at the heart of this labyrinth, a figure whose self-aggrandizement and intellectual hubris are matched only by his capacity for harm. His modus operandi, as Hasanabi eloquently delineates, is the cultivation of a cultic following, a phalanx of digital crusaders whose allegiance is predicated upon the dehumanization of those who dare to oppose their sovereign. Within this ecosystem, NotSoErudite functions not merely as an enabler, but as an ideological gatekeeper, her veneer of erudition lending a spurious legitimacy to the unconscionable acts perpetrated within this fiefdom. And yet, the tragedy of Pixie's plight is but a microcosm of a far greater malaise. It is emblematic of a parasocial ecosystem wherein power dynamics are grotesquely skewed, where victims are gaslit into submission, and where justice is a Sisyphean pursuit. Destiny's Empire thrives upon the exploitation of these dynamics, a veritable Ouroboros of toxicity wherein the very structures that should safeguard individuals are weaponized against them. But let us not confine ourselves to the specifics of this case. Let us ascend to the Olympian heights of philosophical inquiry. What does this sordid tale reveal about the nature of power in the digital age? It reveals, first and foremost, the insidious allure of parasocial relationships, a phenomenon wherein the boundaries between public and private, performer and audience, are irreparably blurred. Within this liminal space, power is not merely exercised but performed, a spectacle of domination wherein the victim becomes both the prop and the casualty. Destiny's role in this spectacle is both architect and actor, a figure whose performative intellectualism masks a far darker reality. His discourse, far from fostering enlightenment, serves as a vehicle for control, a mechanism by which he asserts his dominance over both his audience and his interlocutors. NotSoErudite, as his accomplice, amplifies this dynamic, her role as a pseudo-therapeutic intermediary serving to disarm those who might otherwise challenge this hegemony. And yet, within this tableau of despair, there exists a glimmer of hope, a Promethean spark that refuses to be extinguished. It is embodied in Hasanabi, the digital David who dares to challenge this Goliath. His critique, far from being an exercise in self-aggrandizement, is a clarion call to accountability, a demand for justice in a landscape bereft of it. Through his incisive commentary, he lays bare the mechanisms of power that underpin Destiny's empire, exposing the rod at its core. In the final analysis, this saga is a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the perils of unchecked power in the digital age. It is a tale of hubris and hypocrisy, of exploitation and resistance, of victims and victors. And as we navigate the treacherous waters of this digital labyrinth, let us heed its lessons, for they are as timeless as they are urgent. Let us reject the facile allure of cults of personality, the seductive pull of parasocial relationships, and the corrosive effects of power untempered by accountability. Let us, instead, strive for a digital discourse rooted in empathy, justice, and truth. A discourse that uplifts rather than exploits, that empowers rather than oppresses. For in the end, it is not the architects of these toxic empires who will define the future of digital discourse, but those who dare to challenge them. And as the saga of Hasanabi and Destiny unfolds, one thing is certain. The battle for the soul of this digital age has only just begun.